All right, everybody, welcome. My name is Johnny Vasquez, and I am the head honcho here at Argyle Sheep. We're so glad that you could join us this evening for our very first Meet the Designer live interview. Tonight we have our very special guest, Jessie Rayot of, did I say that, Rayot? Is that?
That's right, yes.
Okay. It's not Rayot or...
Well, technically I believe it is, but you know, my husband's family, they say Rayot, so I say Rayot.
I know, right? In my family, my last name is Vasquez, but we're all super gringo, so they all say Vasquez.
Well, my maiden name is Anist, but it was Anastasopoulos.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, so they condensed it down. All right. Very cool. All right, well, tonight we're going to be chatting with Jessie and talking a little bit about her career, her design inspirations, as well as the project that she has designed for this box that's coming out in just a few weeks for the Black Sheep Society, which we're super excited about. And so we'll get a little bit behind the scenes look at the inspiration behind that project. A project that's exclusive to this club, so another cool reason to become a member today. So Jessie, first, why don't you tell us just a little bit about you and you know, what you're doing with your career right now.
Awesome. Well, I have my blog, jessieathome.com, and I write about knit and crochet there. I put patterns out there. I am a mother of twin girls. Before all of this, I used to be a professional costume designer, but I became a stay-at-home mom and needed a creative outlet. And that's where the blogging kind of rolled into my crafty blogging. And I've started selling to, about a couple years ago, I also sell patterns to magazines and yarn companies and such. And I am Jessie at home. I do knit and crochet design and blogging, and I absolutely love it. And I love being able to be here to answer the phone when one of my kids falls down and scrapes their knee at school. That's kind of a huge bonus. So
the ability to work from home.
Definitely, huge bonus.
Yeah, that's great. So what, well, how long have you been doing this first? And then let's talk about how you sort of got into designing knitwear and crochet wear from doing costume work on Broadway.
Well, I only had one time when I did anything on Broadway, but I did do a lot of other stuff. I started crocheting when I was 8. I started knitting, I was like 30 or so. But I've been running Jessie at Home since 2008. It was initially, my family is spread out all over the country. My mother works for the Department of Defense, so they're constantly stationed all over the world. Initially, the blog was a way to share pictures and stories of my children. And like I said, I needed that creative outlet. And so I started reading other blogs, and I was like, hey, people do creative stuff on their blogs. They don't just write about their kids. That's cool. So I started doing that too. And then in like 2013, I decided that it was either I was going to have to get a job while the kids were at school, or I was going to have to take this fun little hobby of mine and turn it into a business. So I decided to take it seriously and turn it into a business.
That's great. So I want to back up even a little bit further than that.
Okay.
You said that you started crocheting when you were 8 years old. Do you remember what your very first project was?
Well, my great-grandmother is the one who taught me to crochet, and she was very very detail-based. She wanted everything to be just right. So I didn't actually get to make a project for, I don't even know how long it was. I just know that I had to do single crochet until I could get the edges straight. I had to do half double crochet until I could get the everything. And she would yank it all out if I did it wrong. And my father would like bite his tongue because he didn't want to see her yanking everything out. But it's his grandmother, so he's not going to yell at her. And I honestly, from all of that, I can't tell you what my very first project was because I was so young, and I just remember crocheting forever and having it all pulled out and having to start over and having it all out. But the bonus is I am not afraid to yank something out now.
There you go, right? And yet so many people are.
Yeah. So I mean, I can tell you what the first project on my blog was. I can tell you that.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, I decided that we needed to make blanket forts with my kids. They were about 2 or 3, and we didn't have any good sized blankets for blanket forts. So I was like, you know what? We need heirloom blankets for the kids anyway. So I'm going to crochet some. So I decided I was going to make one of those hexagon blankets. And the first hexagon I made, I didn't like it, but I didn't feel like getting rid of it. So I turned it into a hat. So the very first project on my blog is this hexagon topped hat that becomes a hat that I made for my girls. And then I made one of them and the other one loved it so much I had to make a second one for her. And there wasn't a pattern or anything on it because it was just like, I'm going to turn this hexagon into something. And then the first pattern was the actual hexagon blanket that came about from that is still upstairs on one of their beds. And the second, the sister pattern to that one, the pattern never made it onto my blog, but that sister pattern is what launched my career. So.
Okay, and what was that?
That was I made the hexagon blanket for my daughter Veda, and then for my daughter Kyla, I made a blanket that, you know, the blankets that have the octagons and the squares, because octagons don't tessellate, so you have to do the octagons and the squares.
Right.
Well, I made her that, but it never ended up on the blog because I was so busy putting the hexagon one on the blog. And in 2013, when I decided to take my little hobby and turn it into a business, my friend Lorene of Creation Crochet said, we should go to the Knit and Crochet Show. And I said, okay. And she said, we should enter the design competition. And I said, okay. But everything was due for the design competition in like 2 weeks. So I didn't have time to design anything.
Oh.
It had, whatever you sent in had to be something that had not been seen on your blog. It had to be something that hadn't been seen before because they couldn't have the judges know who did it.
Right.
Because it's judged anonymously. So I'm running around my house and there's the octagon blanket on Kyla's bed. So I yanked the blanket off of her bed. My husband and I spread it out on the floor to see if there's any ends, because at this point, this thing is like 4 years old. It's been used as a picnic blanket. It's been, you know, a child's blanket. So you can imagine the things that have happened to that poor blanket.
Right.
We're, you know, straighten it all out, everything, pack it in the box, send it off to Doris Chan. The thing took second place in its category. And Red Heart, and I had like a bidding war on the pattern. And suddenly I was like, I was a designer. I was a real honest to goodness designer. I was selling designs to various yarn companies and magazines, and it was all just because, you know, Lorene's like, we should go to the Knit and Crochet Show. We should enter the design competition. And I just said, okay. So, and now it's come full circle because this year Lorene and I are running the design competition.
So you're the ones that are anonymously judging everyone.
Well, actually, we're not the judges, but we're running it. So we're collecting she's collecting all the entries. I'm doing all the behind the scenes thing, and I'm actually in charge of the judges. So,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. How fortuitous, right?
I know. I've learned sometimes the best thing to do when someone says, you should do this, is to just say, okay.
Now, of all the projects that you've done since then, is there one that sort of stands out as your favorite project?
I definitely have a big place in my heart for those 2 blankets because of how they got me going. But then I'm also madly in love with Skylark in Wonderland, which is a shawl. I had made a shawl called Skylark, and Stephanie of Fragis Fibers and Wonderland Yarns contacted me because she wanted to know if I could make a version of it specifically for her yarn.
Mm.
And I did, and it just, you know, sometimes when you make a pattern the first time, you really like it, but then when you have to make it a second time because the gauge is different or whatever, you know every little thing that you didn't quite like about the first one. So when you do it the second time, it ends up even better. And I just love that thing, and it's one of my most popular patterns, and Stephanie loves it, and it's just and it's made, the colors she sent me were a rainbow, so it's just this happy, lovely little thing that everybody loves, and it makes me all happy and fuzzy whenever I see it.
So, was there a particular thing that inspired you to make that particular item?
Yes, I wanted to do one of those patterns where you start off with a wedge and then you put the next wedge next to it, but it slides down a little bit, so it kind of spirals out. And the first time I did it, I liked it, but it was a little too geometric. And I decided I wanted it to be less geometric. So I just changed a few things. And instead of looking like sliding wedges from the first time, by the time I did it the second time, it looked like a bird's wing, it was called Skylark. That was always the intent, was to look like a wing. The first time it looked very geometric. The second time, when you see it laid out flat, you can see the bird wing out of it. It really worked the second time around. So.
That's great. Where can people find that pattern if they're interested in it?
They can find that on Ravelry, and they can also find it on Jessie at Home under the Patterns section. Probably the easiest way to find it is to just go to my Ravelry page. I'm Jessie at Home there. I'm Jessie at Home everywhere. But I'm Jessie at Home on Ravelry, and it's called Skylark in Wonderland, and the link will then take you to where the pattern is on my blog. Or you can go to my blog, and there's a search bar on the sidebar, and you can type in Skylark in Wonderland and hit search, and it'll pop up.
Great. So, do you have maybe like a main source of inspiration for your work, or is it sort of just whatever comes to you at the time? Like, what's your process look like?
It is very, very varied. There are a few things that are often used for inspiration. One of the things that I often use for inspiration is I collect those vintage stitch books, like the Reader's Digest needlepoint dictionary and the Better Homes and Gardens needlepoint encyclopedia, and those, I collect those because they have these wonderful stitch patterns in them. I don't necessarily look at the patterns they have in them, but I look at the stitch patterns, like what you have on New Stitch a Day. Okay. I look at those, and sometimes you look at that and you're like, this stitch pattern would be beautiful as this. I get tons of magazines. I don't even know why. I don't order them, but I get Elle, I get Harper's Bazaar, I get all these artist magazines and all of these fashion magazines, and I'll look through them, and sometimes they'll just be a color combination that speaks to me, or a shape that speaks to me. Again, it's not like, oh, look at this outfit, I could make that in knit, or I could make that in crochet. It's, oh, look at this color combination, or look at these shapes, I love these. So, and then sometimes it's just, I've literally dreamed patterns before and woken up and been like, let me write that down. You know, they come in different ways, and sometimes I stand in front of my yarn wall and say, what do I want to make? And the yarn will, I'm sorry if I sound crazy, sometimes the yarn will speak to me. It'll just be like, me, I want to be next. So it's a large variety.
Yeah, I know, I can definitely relate. I think, especially when you start out, maybe not even that. I've been able to say no to like seeing a yarn and going like, I need to have that, you know? But I can remember first starting out and just seeing beautiful yarn at a yarn store and being like, I don't know what that's going to be, but I need to have it. And so yeah, I've definitely heard yarn name in the past. So luckily now that we have our own yarn, you know, I'm kind of like very satisfied with what we can create with that. So
yeah.
Have you had an opportunity to use the Zephyr yarn?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Okay, I'll
We'll have
make
to
sure
do
to send you
something
some.
about that.
All right, well, that's great. We're going through our questions a little bit faster than I anticipated.
Oh,
So,
I'm sorry.
well,
I tend
no.
to ramble, so I'm trying not to ramble. Would you like to know how I designed the cowl for your this piece, or are we not there yet?
Society. I do want to get to that, but I thought that oh, yes, we have some other tidbits of information about you,
Oh, yes.
right? So
Yes.
I heard through a little birdie that you designed a mascot outfit.
I designed a non-existent mascot. Yes, I did. When I was in undergrad, I have a BFA in costume design, and I went to the theater school of DePaul in Chicago. And your senior year, you have to do an internship. And I did my internship on the TV show Early Edition, which is that it was Kyle Chandler, yeah, starring Kyle Chandler. It was like his breakout thing, and he gets the newspaper a day early, and he has to fix everything that's wrong in it. And we did an episode that took place with the Chicago Bears. Okay, so the Chicago Bears, they don't actually have a mascot costume, but the way that our leads got into the football game was one of them dressed in the mascot costume and the other one was acting as his handler. So of course, this is what the writer writes, and we run into the problem of there is not a mascot costume. So of course, what do you do in that situation? You find the intern and tell them to make a mascot costume. So I actually had to order a gopher costume because nobody had a bear costume. I had to order a gopher costume, pull out its teeth. And like I was cutting apart sweaters, bear sweaters, to make like logo things. I stuck a bear's cap over just one ear because I did not have the time to make a cap that would fit on this thing's head. And so I made the Chicago Bears mascot costume, even though there is no Chicago Bears mascot costume. And it was on one episode of Early Edition.
That's amazing. Okay, so I did not know that you worked in television. You have another interesting story from your time on that show?
Keith Carradine fetches me coffee. Yes. I was working. It was the last show that I worked on because it was an internship, so it was only 8 weeks. And the guest star was this lovely young woman named Haley, and she and I hit it off amazingly. And she told me that my last 3 days, the last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that I was going to be there, her boyfriend was coming to visit, and she thought that he and I would just totally hit it off. She said we were so much alike, we would be great friends. So, and she just keeps calling him Keith, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'll love to meet him. So I get in on Wednesday morning, and she's like, Jessie, this is my boyfriend Keith, and her boyfriend Keith is Keith Carradine. I'm like, I can't say what I said, but I said something because I was pretty surprised.
Wow.
And the next 3 days, I was hanging out with Keith Carradine. He was fetching me my coffee. My very last day of the show, they gave me a ride home. And I remember going into my dorm because I'm, a senior in college. And I go into my dorm and I tell the guy at the front desk, Keith Carradine gave me a ride home. And the guy at the front desk is like, no, he didn't. So some other kid walks in. He's like, I swear to God, I just saw Keith Carradine pull out of the driveway. I'm like, I told you so. It was great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Now there was one. Go ahead.
I was just laughing.
Oh. There was one other tidbit of information that we were talking about beforehand, but I can't, for the life of me, remember what it was.
Was it my virtual assistant?
No, the other one.
Oh, hold on. Give me a second. What was it?
See, I should have written it down.
I've lived in 7 states and over a dozen cities.
That's right. Okay, so what's the story behind that? Were you an Army brat, married to someone in the military?
Well, when I was born, my father was in the Navy.
Okay.
And so the first two states and probably three or so cities was when my father was in the Navy, that he had an honorable discharge, a medical discharge. So at that point we were in California, and because he had been stationed at Port Hueneme. And my mother's family, who she is very close, they're a very close Italian family. She's the oldest of 11 kids. They all lived in Beverly, Massachusetts, which is Beverly is part of Old Salem.
Okay.
And so she started missing her family. So we decided eventually we were going to move out there so that we could be closer to mom's family. We couldn't. We were living with my grandparents and several of my aunts and uncles, all smushed together, and it was really expensive to buy houses there, but my father's family lived in Ohio. So when he went out to visit Ohio, he was like, oh, we can afford to live there. So then we ended up moving to Ohio for that. And after that, I went off to college. And from college, I decided, I ended up continuing this crazy nomadic life, just trying to find where I belonged. I went out to LA again, realized that I wasn't really into the LA scene. And ended up eventually running the costume department for Adelphi University in Long Island, New York. And while I was doing that, I got my master's in studio art, and one of my classmates decided that I would be perfect for her best friend. And so I was like, okay, well, sure, why not? He seems like a decent person based on what you said. I like you. So, okay, sure. I went on a blind date and ended up marrying this Jersey boy. So here I am in Jersey, and I've lived in Jersey now I've lived in this town, Nutley, New Jersey, for longer than I've lived anywhere else in my entire life. And I think I've lived here for 10 years. And I'm going to be 40 in May. So 10 years is the longest I've ever lived anywhere.
Wow. Now, I also heard that you designed a costume that was on Broadway.
I didn't design any costumes on Broadway. I made some costumes that ended up on Broadway. They were only there for a few days because it was the Broadway Equity Cares, the AIDS show, Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's what it was. A friend of mine was designing the costumes for the opening number for the Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS show, and needed a place to build all the costumes. And that was when I was running the costume department for Adelphi University. So we built all the costumes in my shop. I built them along with two of my students. It was a production of America from West Side Story. So we had to make all of these skirts that have they're like can skirts. So we were ruffling and ruffling. I literally made one of my industrial sewing machines start to smoke because I was ruffling and ruffling and ruffling on it. And so because I wasn't actually Equity, they couldn't put me in the program as a costume, as part of the crew, but they gave me a special thanks, and they gave me tickets to one of the shows. Oh, so nice. I got to sit 6th row center of the Palace Theater on Broadway and watch costumes I made dance across the stage. And it was definitely one of those, this is what I've wanted to see, because I had always dreamed of making costumes that were on Broadway, especially the Palace Theater. It can be anywhere, be at the Palace. So that was, I have definitely lived my life. So.
That's great. Well, before we talk about the design that you did for this month's Black Sheep Society crochet box, I want to open up the time to questions from our live audience that's hanging out with us in the chat room. If you are watching and not in the chat room, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there should be a link that says enter the chat room, and it's going to open up the chat room in a new window. And then you'll be able to enter in there and ask some questions. But Amy, our moderator in the chat room, has been sort of grabbing questions the entire time. So I've got a good list to go through right here. I don't have who they're from, just what the questions are. So the first one says, this person wants to make the bowl cozies, and they want to know what they can use for a microwave yarn that is in the pattern.
I used the yarn that I used was Red Heart Creme de la Creme.
First, why don't you talk a little bit about what the project is? So
it's the bowl cozy. It starts off, when you make it, it looks almost like an eye. It starts to come up like a bowl, but it's only got 2 points of increases, so it looks almost like a curved eye shape, like eyeball eye, not like the letter I. And then you pinch it in to fit around a bowl that you're going to put in your microwave. So you can make it fit exactly to your bowl. And then when you microwave your soup or whatever, when you go to take your bowl out, you don't burn your hands.
Ah, that's such
a
good idea.
Because
I was standing here thinking, like, what the heck's a bowl cozy? Like,
why would you need a bowl cozy? I mean, really, that's why. Because I like to eat soup in the winter. I make a huge pot of soup, a huge crock pot full of soup, and then when I'm home alone at lunch, a lot of times I just microwave some of the leftover soup, and I'm burning my hands, and I have to take the soup all the way downstairs if I'm gonna like sit at my computer and work while I'm eating my soup, and burning my hands the entire time. So I was like, you know what? I had seen these quilted bowl cozies at a craft fair, and I was like, I could do that with crochet. So I grabbed the Red Heart Creme de la Creme because I've used it for other things before that I ended up tossing in the microwave, so I knew that it was safe to microwave. And I made the bowl cozy, and yeah, I put them on there and I microwave. If you're worried about microwaving your yarn, you can make the bowl cozy. You can microwave the bowl separately and put the bowl cozy right next to your microwave, and when you take out the bowl, just put it straight into the cozy if microwaving your yarn freaks you out, or if you don't have a yarn that you're sure would be safe in the microwave.
Yeah, I would think that 100% wool yarn would probably be your best option, since it's not going to be flammable.
Right. That would be a good one too, definitely. And you just have to, know that it's natural and there's not a lot of chemicals or whatever in it.
Right. Yeah. I know that I have applied heat to acrylic yarn before, and the results were not necessarily very good. So.
No, I would not recommend tossing your acrylic yarn in the microwave.
So none of your Red Heart Super Saver, guys, or Simply Soft. Wool's probably a better insulator too from the heat.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, I would say a good affordable 100% wool would be Patons.
Yes, that's high on my list of affordable 100% wool that's good quality.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that, or even Lion Brand's Fisherman's Wool would probably be.
That's another good one.
All right, someone wants to know, what is the most difficult thing about running your business and blog?
I work from wake up to go to bed. And I am a workaholic. My father owned his own businesses until my mother joined the Department of Defense. My father owned his own business, and he was a workaholic. It is in my blood. It is very difficult for me to remember that I have a life outside of work. So I sometimes have to remind myself that what happens is I send my husband and my kids off to do something fun, and as soon as they're gone and it's too late, I will break down in tears because I wish I had gone with them. So what I've started to finally learn is sometimes I have to put the work to the side and go and have fun. And if any of my regular followers are here, they'll know that a couple weeks ago I put up a blog post about going to the Liberty Science Center, which is our local science museum here with the kids. They had a Star Wars day, and they had R2-D2 there, and we have new family photos with R2-D2. And we had a great weekend. And then that Wednesday, my kids were home, and they have a winter break here, and we had a tea party day all day long. We had like high tea for the entire day with just the three of us because my husband had to work that day. And so there were 2 days that week that I entirely took off of work and spent family time. And I was so glad that I did it. But it's
The
definitely
whole
one
thing
of the
didn't
hardest
fall
things.
apart, like.
Yeah, exactly. The world did not fall apart. The blog did not explode. My followers did not leave me. Nobody sent me hate mail wondering where I was. The world kept spinning. I took a couple days off and the world kept spinning.
Amazing.
I
Yeah.
know.
One of my favorite quotes when people ask me about what it's like to run your own business, I say that, well, when you run your own business, you get to choose what 16 hours a day you work.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely have to make sure that I make time to, like, you know, like my daughter's 1, almost a year and a half, but she's really only awake for like 12 hours a day, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm like gone. I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm gone before she wakes up. And then luckily we live pretty close to our house. So Lacey brings her over usually sometime during the day so I can hang out with her for a little bit. And then I see her for a little bit before she goes to bed. And that's pretty much it. So now I've started trying to take like all of Saturday off or all of Sunday off so that we can just do family stuff and hang out. Because otherwise I'm going to miss her, you know, her childhood.
Yeah.
And it's not going to get any easier. We got another one coming in a couple of weeks. So,
oh, awesome. Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah. Well, 8 weeks, I think, but still really soon.
It feels like tomorrow.
Man, yeah, there's sometimes where I'm like, yes, I can't wait to have another child. And sometimes where I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck are we doing?
What did I? Well, mine are twins.
Oh, yeah.
Right away.
My wife's siblings are triplets.
Oh my goodness.
So her mom had 4 kids under the age of 2.
I'd lose my mind.
Yeah, seriously. Luckily, like the business is at a point where Lacey doesn't really have to work on it. So she's pretty much just stays at home now and takes care of the house and the kids. And she's super happy to do that. Like she thinks that's the greatest thing in the world. So I'm like, great. I like being here doing this instead of washing. All right. Someone wants to know, do you have a favorite stitch?
I think I have 2 stitches that I've become very, very fond of. One is the linen stitch or the moss stitch. You hear both names, linen stitch or moss stitch.
Right. For knitting or crochet?
For crochet.
Okay.
And then the other one is the spider stitch, which is the single crochet V, where you do single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, and then you put each one of those inside the chain 2s. So it's like a little V stitch with single crochet.
Okay.
I think they call it, I think one of the names for it is spider stitch. It's very hard to figure out the names for patterns because I have all those vintage books, and most of the vintage books all have a uniform name, but then with the internet, people started naming things differently. Right. And now there's like 50 names for everything. So I think those are my favorite crochet stitches. As far as knit, I don't know that I have a favorite knit stitch. I think with knit, it's more of doing things with the shaping and stuff that I enjoy than a specific stitch. Although I do really like the look of the linen or moss stitch in knit as well, but it's a very time-consuming stitch.
Yeah, absolutely, especially the linen stitch, all that slipping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, someone wants to know how long you've been a member of the Crochet Guild of America.
2013, when I decided I was going to take this seriously.
All right, so almost 3 years then.
Yeah.
Where do you tend to do most of your crocheting?
I have a little studio in my basement, and I go down there in the morning after I take my kids to school. And this year I was able to bring my husband home from his second and third jobs. So now he just has one job. He's a teacher. and his school starts and ends a little before the girls do. So he's actually able to get home in time to pick them up from school. So I take the kids to school. I go down to the basement in my studio, and I work there. My husband picks up the kids from school, and he does homework time with them. I stay downstairs until about 4 or 5, and I come up, make dinner, and then usually in the evenings, I'll still continue to crochet upstairs on the couch. My husband likes to watch TV when he's home and after dinner, and so I'll watch TV with him and crochet or knit.
That's great. Now, how old are your girls?
They are 8.5. They're in 3rd grade.
And have you taught them to knit or crochet yet?
They can crochet. Veda can kind of sort of knit sometimes when she wants to pay attention enough. They can both do the spool crochet, you know, the little French knitting spool crochet things, or spool knitting things, and then they can both do a crochet chain. They've made several necklaces, and Veda has recently learned single crochet, so we're working on that. So I let them know every once in a while, do you want to learn something? And if they want to, I teach them. And if they don't, I'm not going to force them. But they definitely want to. It's just sometimes they get a little overwhelmed by it.
Do you think, this is another question from the audience, do you think that your grandmother's influence had anything to do with you becoming a designer?
I definitely do. And the funny thing is, it's my great-grandmother obviously was the one who taught me to crochet, but her daughter, who was named Veda also, she's the one who I named my daughter Veda after, was an artist. She was a jewelry designer. She actually designed my ring. She was a jewelry designer, and a pretty well-known one. She had some jewelry at the Smithsonian for a while, and she was going to teach me. I moved to Ohio, where she lived, when I was 8, and she was going to teach me everything she knew. Unfortunately, several months after I moved there, she passed away unexpectedly. So that didn't exactly happen, but I always, that need to be an artist never left me. And I really feel like I took my grandmother and my great-grandmother and both of their skill sets, and I combined them to become, you know, this knit and crochet designer. And I definitely see how that kind of that happened throughout the generations of the women on that side of the family. So.
All right, great. Someone wants to know, do you have a favorite yarn? And while you answer that, I'm going to run and grab something real quick, and I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem. My favorite yarns, they kind of, I think I go through phases with favorite yarns, just like I go through phases with favorite stitches. I do really, really love the Frabjous Fibers yarns. The Frabjous Fibers yarns, the yarn bases they use are nice, are really nice to begin with, and the colors are great. And I've also become a big fan of the Crystal Palace yarns as well. They have some really great color changes. But honestly, I think it comes down to, a lot of times, whatever yarn I'm using, I tend to fall in love with yarn very easily. But those seem to be two that I tend to gravitate back to quite often. So but again, like I said, the same with, just as with a favorite stitch, my favorite yarn sometimes changes, and sometimes somebody comes out with something new, and I'll fall madly in love with it and do a bunch of stuff with it for like 2 or 3 months, and then somebody else will come out with something new, and I'll fall madly in love with that one. So.
Someone else wants to know, do you have a favorite dishcloth pattern?
I don't really. I don't think I've only made a few dishcloths, so sorry. Not so much.
The granny square.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've made maybe 2 dishcloths ever, so I would be at a loss for an answer to that question as well. All right. Well, why don't we talk about the design that you did for the Black Sheep Society for this month? We have not revealed the actual full design to the public. You'll get that when you get your shipment. You'll get to see the finished design, but we can tell you that it is crocheted and that it is a cowl.
Yeah.
So, but beyond that, why don't you tell us sort of your thoughts and feelings behind the design?
Okay, well, one of the things I did was I used the inspiration of the actual yarn. There were a couple of different yarns that there were to choose from, so I looked at the yarns and thought about what would look good with them. I knew that it was a cowl that we were looking for. I took all of the criteria that I had for what it needed to be, and then I hit the books, those vintage stitch pattern books that I have, to look for some inspiration because, you know, when I'm just designing something for my blog and it can be anything I want, I can get inspiration from anywhere. But when I have the criteria of, you know, here's a couple yarns you can choose from, we want it to be a cowl, then I need to focus a little bit more. I can't just look everywhere. And sometimes that's a really nice thing because it helps reel you in. And as you probably know, when you have a creative mind, sometimes you need to be reeled in.
Yeah, given those parameters, the rules kind of like force you to, you know, how do you be inventive within, you know, within that space?
Exactly. And
so people know what Jessie's talking about. We worked with a lot of designers coming up with some of the patterns for the next few months, and we gave them sort of criteria for the things that we were looking for. So that's what she's talking about when she's saying, like, well, here's why I had to do that. Like, she didn't just make those criteria for herself. We put those restraints on her.
Yes. And I really love those sorts of challenges. It's like, okay, you have X, Y, and Z, go. And I love that, you know, because it then it makes you really have to think. And so what I did was I pulled out all of my vintage stitch pattern books and I started looking through them for a stitch pattern that I thought would look nice with the yarn and as a cowl. And I found several of them, and I made several different swatches. I made a few swatches. I made a few charts, and I just kept playing around with it until I narrowed it down to a few different choices. And finally, what I ended up with was a stitch pattern that I think that one was maybe in the Better Homes and Gardens book, and it was called the Little Leaf Stitch, which is not what anybody calls it now, but the vintage name for it is Little Leaf Stitch. And it just worked beautifully with the Imperial yarns. They were made for each other. And once I had those two things, it just designed itself.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of like a traditional wattle stitch.
Yeah, and I'm thinking they are basically the same thing. I think it's one of those things where the name has changed. When you have an art form like ours, where a lot of it was passed down from person to person, and then there's the books, and then there's the internet, you can have one stitch with 10 names.
Yeah, definitely. Or names that get swapped, right? Like,
yeah. Well, it's like the linen stitch or the moss stitch. To me, those are both the same stitches, but some people think that they're two different stitches. And I never quite know. So sometimes I'm just like, okay, it's a stitch where you do X, Y, Z. And they're like, oh yeah, I call it this. I'm like, well, I call it that. Well, as long as we're following the same directions, it's all good.
That's funny. Yeah, we've had more than once on New Stitch a Day, we've had like a pattern come through, and I'll be working on the pattern in the video, and I'll stop filming and I'll be like, can you go look up this other stitch? And I'll look it up, and it has the exact same instructions. And I'm like, where are we doing this again? Like, what is this? Yeah.
Same stitch, new name.
So yeah, I've definitely experienced that as well. People are going to have to wait just a little bit longer in order to see the finished design, but they can get a little hint if you go to the website, and I'm going to pull up the page for the crochet hint real quick, and we can take a look and see what get a glimpse of what the finished project's going to be. While I'm pulling that up, someone wanted to know the yarn that you were talking about for your favorite yarn. Can you repeat the name, and do you know if it's available in Canada?
Oh, Frabjous Fibers, Wonderland yarn. I am honestly not sure if it's available in Canada, but if you look up Wonderland yarn is going to be easier to spell. Frabjous Fibers, Frabjous is from the Jabberwocky comb. It's F-R-A-B, I need to write it to spell it. F-R-A-B-J-O-U-S, F-R-A-B-J-O-U-S.
So they went for a really easy name to pronounce.
Yeah. Wonderland Yarns is also something you could look up to get to that.
Okay.
I honestly have no idea if it's available in Canada. The other one that I said was Crystal Palace, which you can find at straw.com. And again, I'm not sure if it's available in Canada. I'm sorry. Does Webs ship to Canada? Do you know?
I think that they ship worldwide. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I'm pretty sure you can find at least Crystal Palace at Webs. I'm not sure about Frabjous Fibers. And I'm pretty sure that Webs carries Crystal Palace.
All right, so I've got the hint pulled up here, so we're going to take a look real fast.
I love that picture.
Here it is. You can definitely get the idea that it's a cowl and get a little bit of a taste of what the texture looks like on the pattern. You know what I was really impressed and surprised about with this pattern is crochet, for better or worse, has a lot of structure to it. And so it tends not to have like a really beautiful drape with textures that are this dense. But I have to say that this cowl drapes beautifully. It's a really, really well done.
Thank you. I like to use a little bit larger hook to make sure that things aren't too compact. And of course, the yarn helped a lot too.
Right, yeah, and the yarn that we're using in this, which again, you'll find out exactly what it is when you get your shipment, is a pretty rustic yarn. And so, you know, again, you're absolutely right. The marriage of the two is just beautiful. Come out really well.
Well, thank you.
Well, and as you can see, there are just a little bit more than 3 days for you to sign up to get this month's kit. They'll be shipping out next week, probably the middle of next week. And so we have a special deal for you today. If you go to the link on the webpage, on this page, and click that, you go to the website and you can select which plan you want to join in. That is either knitting, crochet, or sewing. And if you use the code when you're checking out, Jessie at home 10, you'll get $10 off your first order. And because we try to do things a little bit differently with our club, all of the subscriptions that happen tonight using that code or coming through that link will be supporting Jessie and her career and being able to continue to work at home. Of course, we have compensated her for the design of the project as well, but we do kind of like a rewards-based system. So the more people that sign up, the more Jessie makes.
Sign up today.
So if you have not seen what the packages look like, they're absolutely beautiful. This is an example of the kind of package you're going to get shipped to you at your house. It is hand wrapped and we hand stamped with our custom Black Sheep Society wax seal. And this is kind of what the kits look like once they're opened up. You'll get a pattern download card. And so we include a little sticker on the back here, it's not on this one, with all the information to download. And every project comes with a video class. So you'll be able to actually log in, and we do video instruction to walk you through every single step. So it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or you've never even crocheted before, we're really gonna show you everything that you need to know to be successful. And if that doesn't do it for you, we also have a private forum where you have access directly to our team of knitting and crochet and sewing experts to answer any of your questions. People are also posting their projects in there and showing off their work. So it's kind of like a little private party when you become part of the Black Sheep Society. So you can click the button that's on the page to go over to the Black Sheep Society website to check out, and use the code Jessie at home 10. When you're signing up, you'll get $10 off of your subscription or of your first order. All right. And if you have any questions about the Black Sheep Society, I can hang out and answer some of those. Someone else had a question for you, Jessie. They wanted to know if why do designers design hats and cowls and scarves at this time of year?
Why do they not design them at this time of year?
Why do they?
Why do they design them at this time of year?
Yes.
A couple reasons. Sometimes they're doing them because they might be in a part of the world where it is winter. They are massively popular. People like them. If you're selling a pattern, people buy them. If you put them on your blog and your blog is monetized, people are going to your blog and looking at them. People like them a lot. I do try, and I know a lot of designers try to keep patterns that are essentially seasonal, but hats, scarves, cowls, those things all are popular year-round, so that's why you see a lot of them. However, you know I personally try to maybe switch it over to a beachy kind of shawl, or I'm working on a beach bag right now. Last week I did a cover up that you can wear over your swimsuit when you go to the when you go to the beach. I apparently am on a beach kick. I did a sun hat, you know, so it's still, you can take a hat and you can make it a sun hat. You can do a summer scarf. But if people are buying them and if people are going to your blog to look at them, then you got to go where the money is. To be perfectly honest, you got to see the kids.
Part of the reasons why we have cowls this month is because we had planned on releasing this particular box a month before we did. And so it would have been colder when we originally planned to put it out. But we figured it's still pretty cool in the evenings in most parts of the country. So it's still going to be a nice thing to, you know, to put on when it's a little bit nippy outside, even though we're getting into spring.
Yeah. And it's pretty timeless, so it'll still be fashionable and stylish when the weather turns again.
Absolutely, and that's another thing that we try to do here at the Black Sheep Society is all the projects that you'll get, one, are going to be relatively simple, so they're going to be very easy, fun, and quick to do, but they're also going to be very classic projects. So they're the type of things that you would find at a store that you would shop at, like Macy's or Forever 21. We're just showing you how to make them for yourself. And so when people say like, oh, where'd you get your cowl? You'll be like, I made it from Jessie Rayot's pattern.
Cool.
Let's see. Do you have a suggestion for a nice cowl for summer/spring?
I have one up my site and now been the comfy, I think I called it the comfy mochi cowl. It's made out of a Crystal Palace mochi yarn. Um, and so it's a really long, loose draped cowl. So you can wear it long, or you can wrap it up if it's a little colder in the evening. So that's a good pattern, and you can even make that same pattern with you could use that pattern and use a cotton yarn too, if that's what you want. If you want something even lighter, or a linen, if you have a lighter yarn, a more breathing fabric, more breathing yarn, you could do that. So I think I called it the Comfy Mochi Cowl.
All right.
Again, if you look on Ravelry, you'll find it.
All right, we got another question here. If you don't mind hanging out for just a little bit. Do you have a particular brand of crochet hook that you prefer?
I like I do actually really like the Susan Bates hooks. Those are the ones that I like. They have the what do you call those? They're the inline ones, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I like those. They work nice for me. But I like that style. But I also like them to be ergonomic, however you say that. So I am a big fan of the furls, and there's also a couple eBay places that will take a hook that you choose and will make a polymer clay ergonomic handle for it as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, if you just look up like ergonomic crochet hooks on Etsy, you can usually find the places that do that, and you can find some that will whichever your favorite hook is, they'll use that when they make it. So I do like that, and like I said, I like if you just want to go ahead and not have to deal with any of that and just buy one that's ergonomic and I like it. I really like the Furls hooks, but they are of course definitely a higher price point.
Nobody asked, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The hook that got me to start crocheting, like the thing, I literally bought the hook before I knew how to crochet, and I was like, I really like the hook, so I'm going to have to learn to crochet just so I could use it. It's made of palm wood, and it's from Laurel Hill, and it just looks amazing. In fact, if you look on the Black Sheep Society website on the main page or on the plans page, and you see the one for crochet, that hook is in the photo. That's my favorite crochet hook.
Nice.
We've also used. Have you used the Addy Turbo Swing hooks?
I have tried them out at conferences before, and they are very, very cool. I like those a lot too.
Yeah, those are super ergonomic.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen those a lot of places, so you probably have to look for them.
Yeah, I've only actually seen them at conferences, but I mean, you can of course order them online.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you can buy them from Amazon.
So there's a couple other options for you if you're looking for other crochet hooks. At the Laurel Hill, I got mostly because I thought it was cool, but it turns out that they're actually pretty ergonomic themselves. So, I love those hooks. But I'm with you. When I first started out, I was all about the Susan Bates with the inline hook instead of the one that sort of comes out and gets
the tapered one. Yeah. I just feel like my tension stays better. I feel like I feel like it catches better when I need it to. The hook itself hooks better, and my tension stays better because the neck is a more even, more uniform width.
Yeah. When I used to teach knitting and crochet at Michael's, and I would always, like, if someone came in with the boy hooks, I'd go back and be like, "You want to buy these?" The Susan Bates ones instead. Yeah. This is a question for me. Is there a specific link to sign up for the box? No, the link is already embedded in the button. So if you just click that button, it will give credit. So it's a magic link.
Woohoo!
Follows you through to the other side. So, all right. So Someone had asked a question earlier, and I wanted to save it till the end. You've got a cool event coming up pretty soon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, the yarn and wine tasting. I am so excited about that. I wish that we had Star Trek teleports so that everybody could go. But or transporters. That would rock. But I have a dear friend who owns a vineyard in Parkton, Maryland, and on April 23rd, Saturday, April 23rd, we are having a yarn and wine tasting, and it's a 3-hour event where the tables that you sit at will be covered in different yarns and some different products, and you get to try out all of the yarns on your table. And throughout the 3 hours, at the very beginning, there'll be a wine tasting as well. And then you can continue to order more glasses of wine, especially if you have a designated driver or a taxi. And you can just keep drinking wine and trying out yarn. And throughout the entire event, you can ask me questions and pick my brain. You can give each other tips and tricks, and we will have tons of door prizes. I have more door prizes than I have tickets to sell, so everybody is guaranteed to win at least one door prize, and everybody goes home with a goodie bag that's worth about 3 times the cost of the price of the ticket already. So it's going to be a ton of fun, and it's going to be definitely worth the price of admission. So I'm very excited.
Great. That sounds like a lot of fun. And we were hoping to feature Zephyr there, but the timing just didn't work out. So hopefully if you do this again later in the year or next year, we'll get some yarn out to you.
Yeah, I would love to make it an annual thing.
It sounds like it will be a lot of fun. So. Oh, Amy's saying that the wine tasting is already full?
There were still 11 tickets left this morning. Let me check real quick and see. There are 11 tickets left still.
All right. So if you live somewhere nearby, now's your chance to go.
Mm-hmm.
Get signed up. Okay. So I want you to do one more thing for me before we head out. We've got about 30 people in the chat room right now. I want you to pick a number between 1 and 30.
Okay, 13.
13. Okay, so we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Wait, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14. You said 13?
13, 1, 3.
It is SD Boys 3. SD Boys 3, you just won a package, one of these.
Woohoo!
So if you send us your email address, Amy will get you a coupon code for you to redeem your free Black Sheep Society shipment. It's not a subscription, it's just one shipment, so you don't have to worry about being signed up if you're not interested, but you win a free shipment, so congratulations.
Yay!
All right. Well, if people want to learn more about your work and sign up for your newsletter and stuff, where should they go?
Go to jessieathome.com, and at the very top of the screen, there's a text. There's some text that says "sign up" or "click here to sign up for our weekly newsletter." So if you click on that, you can sign up for the weekly newsletter. And jessieathome.com is the blog, so you can always keep track of me by just going there and seeing what I have to say that day.
Great. Well, Jessie, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day, putting your kids to bed a little bit early so that you can join us tonight. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I hope that we get to do it again sometime soon. And I can't wait for everybody to get their boxes and see your beautiful cowl project.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a blast.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful evening. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Don't forget to click the button right below the video screen to sign up for the Black Sheep Society and use the code JessieAtHome10 to get $10 off of your order. And as long as you do that in the next 72-ish hours, you'll be getting this month's box. But if you sign up after midnight on Saturday, then you'll be in next month's shipment for April. So, and we've got a whole new group of designers that will be featuring in April. So Thanks all for coming out tonight, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great night.